Is your
Hello,
work
good
done
morning.
now?
Well, I hope so. I didn't really think I'd need to bring this case because all over the summer I'd been writing to Boris Johnson and his team saying if you go ahead this prorogation it will be illegal, but they sought to still push ahead. But I think what we will find over the next few weeks, as you've just discussed, the MPs will come back, is that they have very little time now to try and deliver something which I and many people think is undeliverable. So either we don't leave on the 31st of October, forget what Mr. Johnson is saying, or they try again to do something which may well be illegal. So my legal team and I will be keeping a sort of legal watch, if you like, on what happens over the next few weeks.
Yes, and Gina, to that point, are you expecting to have to return to court on the point that lawmakers have actually already passed legislation requiring Boris Johnson to seek an extension to the negotiations with the EU until the end of January? Are you expecting to have to challenge Boris Johnson on that front at all?
I think yesterday's win is such an unequivocal 11-0 win that I hope that's a real shock to Mr. Johnson and the government, and that they don't attempt to break the law or to give unlawful advice to the Queen again. If they do, then we may well have to take action, but I really hope that they don't go to those lengths.
And from where you're sitting now, and in terms of taking that action, how far along that process might you be? Is it just something you're thinking about and waiting to get some definitive next steps from Boris Johnson?
The courts would never entertain anything that they see as being, if you like, academic. There's always a very fine line between approaching the courts and them listening to the case and the action being taken. I mean, with the prorogation case, we literally had a day, but we had been preparing the case for some time before that. At the moment, we are not preparing anything because, as I say, I really hope that the government does not attempt to break the law. And I'm not preparing anything at the moment, just keeping a watch on what they're doing.
You're keeping a watch on Parliament as well. What would you like to see from MPs as they return today?
Oh, it's got to be much plainer speaking. There have to be much tougher questions on the government. We hear that there will be an updated Yellowhammer report. They have got to start debating in the select committees, all the reports, asking questions about what's happening, what's really happening with the negotiations going on with the EU. They have got to be much more bold, as I've said before, and decisive in the decisions they make in the time that we've got left.
Should Boris Johnson step down?
If you and I broke the law, there'd be a penalty to pay. And, you know, he's the only Prime Minister in modern times who's actually attempted to do and been found out yesterday's ruling. So in an ideal world, yes, he should go. But I have to say, with the clock ticking to the 31st of October, there isn't time for a leadership election. And the only way out would be for the Conservatives to agree on a unity candidate. And there's so much infighting in the Conservatives, as with Labour. I just can't see that happening. So I think he will end up staying in post, but there has to be really serious questions placed to him in Parliament. But I think there are other senior individuals in the government who have to also be answerable and consider their positions, such as Jacob Rees-Mogg, you know, the Attorney General, the Lord Chancellor. It wasn't just Boris Johnson who delivered this unlawful advice to the Queen.